Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Chosen series. I am James from the Nerdy Bible, and I'm here with Mike from Showboys Media. How's it going there?
Good. How are you tonight?
Great. Yeah, we were just talking about your infamous or famous, however you want to put it, Reptar shirts,
Oh,
and
yes.
so you seem
Uh,
to never run out.
yeah, well, that's because TJ Maxx always has some, like, real fire, like, late 90s, early 2000s,
Uh,
like, I don't know, Nickelodeon/cartoon themed hoodies, and they're only, like, $20, which is
for the hoodie?
decent price
Oh,
for a
okay.
hoodie. Um, so
They're like
yeah.
no one else is buying them, so
Exactly, they're like, "We gotta get rid." I don't know why we keep making these or stocking them, but we gotta get rid of them now. Uh, but I'm thankful
they're
for
gonna
it
start
'cause
calling you specifically
yeah,
on the phone.
exactly. I have, 3
Three.
Nickelodeon hoodies, and 2 of them are heavily, favoring Rugrats,
Yeah.
which was one of my favorite shows when I was a little whippersnapper.
Yeah. I it was good. I watched it all the time. I'm
Mhm.
trying to think if it a lot of these shows, they just don't hold up. Who was the one night I was like, you know, I'll put on Power Rangers, and oh my goodness, dude, it did not hold up at all.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad. So,
I wanna watch, like, some of my favorites, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, and then fast forward a few years, Angry Beavers was
mm,
awesome.
mhm.
I would love to go back and, like, see, 1, if they could even, like, be aired today, but then 2, if it would hold up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always risky.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man.
Anyways, I digress.
Yeah, well, sometimes you gotta. So, yeah. So today's episode, man, we are on what season? Well, season two,
Season 2,
episode 4.
episode 4. Yes.
Um,
Can I tell you a little story?
yeah, no, let's hear it.
So we were attempting to record this on another day,
Mhm.
and when every time we record, I watch the episode literally like right up until we jump on here,
Yeah.
and I was watching the episode. I was like 10 minutes in, and I'm like, why the heck is Jesse being questioned by like the Pharisees right now? Like, we just finished Matthew 4:24, and now Jesse's already being like, did I fall asleep or something? Like, what happened? And I looked and I was like, oh, because I'm accidentally watching episode 5 and not episode 4.
Oh, that's yep.
So then I actually watched the correct episode and I was like, I thought something was missing here. Yeah.
Well, that would have been funny if we had actually went through with that podcast
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, that would have been interesting.
Oh man, that would have been a blooper. But yeah, man. So today we are in, like I said, episode 4, which is called the perfect opportunity. Almost messed that one up. Do you want to describe? Well, yeah,
Yeah,
just tell us what it's about. Let's
for
hear it.
sure. Jesse, a paralytic, spends 38 years searching for a cure and stays at the Pool of Bethesda while his brother Simon joins the Zealots, training to become one. The Zealots plot to assassinate a Roman magistrate in Jerusalem, with Simon Z leading the plan, but Atticus Aemilius, a Roman cohort urbane, we'll just go with that, discovers their plan. Jesus and the disciples head to Jerusalem to prepare for the Feast of Tabernacles. Assisted in Jerusalem by a fellow Pharisee, Yanni, um, Shmuel preaches against false prophecy. The disciples discuss the scriptures as they celebrate the feast. After being informed concerning Shmuel, Jesus decides to go to the Bethesda pool to meet someone, bringing Simon, John, and Matthew. At Bethesda, Jesus approaches Jesse, asking him if he wants to be healed. Jesus heals Jesse, and John writes down the miracle. Witnessing the healing, Yanni and other Pharisees are upset and admonish Jesse for carrying a mat on Shabbat. When the assassination plan is being executed, Simon Z is distracted as he sees Jesse walking. The two brothers reconcile, and Atticus Emilius is bewildered. Jesus withdraws himself, and Simon Z searches for him. Might be the longest
Yeah, I was gonna say
episode summary so far of the
pretty long one.
podcast.
Yeah, at this point, episode done.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll
And,
see you next week for episode 5.
oh man. Yeah, no, man, so where to start? Where to start? Yeah, I mean, the episode kind of just, gives a nice long backstory. Of I'm having a brain fart here.
Jesse and
Jesse,
Simon.
yes, my goodness. Jesse and Simon. Jesse is the fast forward to the pool of Bethesda, the paralytic man. And it gives you a little backstory. And this is most definitely creative liberty.
Yeah.
But I think it's clever. But he falls from a tree and hits the ground and is actually paralyzed from it. And so, it go through the scene, his mother and father having him towards a doctor, and they're testing him, and they get the news, and they're sad. But then it starts going through his life, kind of, as he's getting older, and so
it's really a tragic little story.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's like I feel like I'm not giving it justice right now.
Yeah,
Almost
like he falls out of the tree
Mhm.
at a young age, like, I don't know, probably around 10 or so, I would say, right around there, maybe give or take a few years.
Yep, it's a good guess.
Finds out that he's paralyzed. They go to a doctor, then they go to like a witch doctor, and then they go to like they try all these different avenues, different medicines and stuff. Nothing works. And then his mother dies during childbirth. And then so it's like their dad's like trying to raise the two boys, Simon and Jesse's paralyzed, and there's some really cool scenes showing Jesse and Simon's relationship where they're like playing, they're always like doing stuff together, helping each other out. They have like this secret little handshake they do before they fall asleep at night. So they're really like building up the closeness of Jesse and Simon, which obviously is more played upon later on in the episode. But I really like what they did with the scenes here, especially like not using any dialogue really for maybe all of it, but definitely the majority of it. I always like it when shows or movies do that. It's kind of like a pseudo montage, right? But I like at times silence can be a powerful tool, and I liked seeing all this stuff happening without like the exposition of dialogue. You can piece things together yourself,
Yeah, no, it was really good in that regard. I mean, what are we talking about? Like, it's almost like 5-10 minutes of like no talking,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like how his old. So I'm assuming from just inferring here is that Simon is actually the younger brother, and so is young in he's like very inclusive for Jesse's very just it's almost like Jesse is reliant on Simon. So no, it's good. They breathe a little life into this person that you see in John 5 that's like you get this snippet of this man that's healed, and
Right.
and so it's obviously this is all
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't the historians probably never stumbled upon Jesse's biography,
yeah, Yeah, but the reality is that each of these people, when we look at it and we're like, oh, Jesus healed him. Well, like there's so much more to it, and
Mhm.
whether this is right or wrong, the probability is probably pretty low of it being right,
Yeah,
like of an actual story. But like, it doesn't take away from like how this dude felt,
right.
or how like it's not too far from how he ended up at the pool of Bethesda. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I
Like
mean,
it,
yeah, he was paralyzed and at the pool of Bethesda. How he got there, is it
it
really that big of a deal, though?
no,
No.
and I think a lot of those minor details, like they give the emotion, they give the feelings that this dude probably had, and so I really like it because
Mhm.
that's not creative liberty. I mean,
Yeah.
it is, but to some extent. But I think the reality is like, especially in that kind of time, I mean,
Mhm.
there's not, you know, I don't know. I don't want to like say it, but like, there's not really any culture that's trying to include people that are of disability in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty. I really liked it. I really liked the intro to this. It's one of those like things of this show where I'm like, man, they just always seem to get these things right.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
just theatrically,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, it's done really well. Great piece of storytelling to support, like, the biblical moment of the healing. Um, and, this whole intro scene ends with, uh, Jesse's brother, who is unnamed at the time. We don't know that it's Simon, but he leaves. Um,
mm,
I think does he see like some zealot training or something? Like I think he sees something regarding the zealots
I think it's
that
his
makes him wants to
father. Maybe I'm wrong.
something catches his attention with the zealots, and he ends up leaving to join the zealots, which the zealots we should probably explain. It's like an extremist group,
It's a
um,
good explanation.
that are like kind of really take scripture out of context and are a violent group to end the Roman oppression via what they think scripture, what
Mhm,
God is telling God's people to do. Um, so he joins this basically secret group of assassins from the Lord.
mhm.
And I mean, I'm like playing it up, but that's what the zealots kind of were.
Uh-huh.
Um, at least in the context of the show. Historically, I don't know if they were actually a group of assassins, holy assassins, but yeah, that's kind of where this intro ends, and you see like the fracturing of Jesse's relationship with his brother because
Mhm,
his brother just kind of up and leaves, and Jesse feels abandoned, and then I believe you know that's when Jesse, as a young man, makes his way down to the pool of Bethesda, and you just see again like the way that the duality of the brothers here,
mhm,
like they show scenes of Jesse, trying to crawl and climb his way from his mat where he's sitting by the pool into the water. um if you're like me, you probably had no idea what the significance of this pool, like what was even going on.
mhm,
um because the us still we're I think we're still silent in terms of dialogue. So we just see this happening while Jesse's struggling to try to get into this pool, like being climbed over, pushed aside, like downtrodden. Like um, we have cuts of his brother training with the Zealots, like doing the martial arts training, the hand-to-hand combat training, and just the way they splice these together, like 10 seconds of Jesse being trampled over, and then like 10 seconds of Jesse's brother like wrestling a guy to the ground, like in training. It's just it's super cool. I love how they do that.
Yep. No, it's good. So you got him. He's just getting, like you said, getting trampled over every time, and I like how they aged him. As like each time he's army crawling, and like his head goes down, it pops up. He's like 5 years older.
Yeah.
His beard's gray. It's and he's still determined. And so, which I really like. What I'm not going to jump ship here now and talk about earlier, but like I just really like the interaction with Jesus later. I'm excited to get to that point. I think the way they did it was just perfect in context.
Do you want to explain the pool now before we get to that
point? I was
point,
trying to do a little bit of research, and I mean, it's just so, from my understanding, it's within Jerusalem. It bubbles up in the center. Well, I don't know if it's in the center. I'm assuming it's in the center, but you're supposed to be healed if you get the first one getting there. I guess that's what I'm picking up from it. And so a lot of my research that I've been trying to do is like find the pool of Bethesda now. Did you find better research on that? If not, we'll have to turn that music on and start.
There's okay, so in the episode they give a little exposition on the pool.
Well, yeah, they did do that, and so
that's all I know about it. Okay. Is basically, according to the show, I don't know if this is accurate or not. It's like a pagan thing here. Basically, what happens is due to something that happens in nature. It causes steam to arise from under the pool and causes this bubbling. And what they thought, due to the Phoenician god Ephraim,
dang, you did some good research here.
Oh, I'm literally just reading the closed captioning, which is something to do with like the Greeks and the Romans. Whoever, when the pool would start to bubble, the first person that would get in the water would be healed. So that's why Jesse basically sets up shop here at the pool, because as we saw earlier in the episode, his family has tried every avenue to heal him, right? To unparalyze him. And so he sees this as like his last resort. And so that's why every time it starts to bubble in these scenes, you see everyone frantically like sprinting, running, crawling, whatever they can do to get into this water first. And why Jesse feels so defeated, because he never gets to the water, like, let alone first. He just never gets to the water. So that's kind of why he's there. Probably just get that explanation out of the way.
No, that's good.
And side note, the intro of this episode telling the story of Simon and Jesse is like 9 minutes and 22 seconds long before the opening credits start. So it's quite the intro.
I knew it was okay.
Yeah. But yeah. Back to you, sir.
Back to me. So yeah, I mean, I think after the 9 minute and 22 second introduction, I mean, we're kind of at present time. That's where it lands at. You got Jesse, who's defeated, sitting by the pool, watching bubbles steam up after every whatever amount of time, relying on pagan gods. And then you have Simon, who's just who it's showing right here. It starts out, it's Simon kind of they're preparing, right? They're preparing for, I don't know, a job, I would say. They're trying to get back at Rome. They're oppressors, right?
Mhm.
Like you said, they're part of a very extremist group that is probably read a lot of things in terms of like, you know um the military portions of the
Mhm.
Bible in like a very literal way of like,
Yeah.
and I mean, I feel like you got a lot of the different groups there. I mean, even before like Christian denominations now, what we see, you had the Sadducees, the Pharisees, you got extremists like the Zealots.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but yeah, so they're planning out a job. It's really not really clear of what they're going to do, but um, they're practicing and preparing, and you're getting a little introduction to Simon here.
Yeah. Yeah, the little trial run in their, like,
Uh-huh.
setup village, that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, short of recounting, um, the entire episode, I think really we have 2 paths here. We have Simon and his mission, and on the flip side, we have Jesus and the disciples at 1 preparing and then 2 participating in the Feast of Tabernacles.
Correct.
Um, so do you wanna stick with one, or do you wanna bounce around, like, as it progresses in the episode? What do you think would, make the most sense?
Yeah, let's just let we've been talking about Simon and Jesse. Let's just kind of go through the rest of their story real quick, or of at least Simon
Yeah.
and so they are. Well, I mean, there really isn't much to the story really, other than the fact that they're preparing.
Mhm.
They've done these example or practice runs of
Yeah.
what they're about to do, and what it alludes to is there's a clear person, there's somebody watching them. So,
Mhm.
I'm a Roman spy, right? Somebody
Seems to
that's
always be eating some sort of
yes,
apple
Apple.
or something.
Right? Like the Disney villain or something
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
eating an apple, yeah, no. So, I mean, honestly, much of his story is that, and he's here for the feast of, what is it called? The what are they all here for? The
Feast of
feast
Tabernacles.
tabernacle, my goodness, yes. So, um, which they would build tabernacles in and feast, right? And so, um,
Shocking.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I
I
don't know,
like
it
the once we get to that side of the story, like, I like
mhm,
the symbolism that they explain about it,
mhm,
but we'll talk about that when we get there.
yeah. So, I mean, honestly, though, there's really not much more to his story other than he's continuously being watched.
Mhm.
And so as he's in Jerusalem, they're preparing, they're getting actually all the things that they were had in their practice session, doing it live.
Mhm.
And here they are. And he actually visits Jesse. Right. So you want to go into that part?
Yeah, it's pretty cool because it's kind of like one of those things that kinda has a double meaning, I think, for Simon. One, as they kind of end their conversation, which we'll probably talk about their conversation, but when he ends, he's just like, "Look, Jesse, I came here to say goodbye,
Mhm,
because I didn't, like, do it properly the first time," but also, I think the double-sided meaning here is, like, as this zealot assassin, right? Like, it's either going to like, his plan's either going to work or he's
mhm.
going to die, right? So he could be like this could be his, like, final goodbye
Well,
to
it's that
Jesse.
it's that extremist portion too, like he knows he's doing something so um
Crazy.
crazy that it's detrimental to himself, but for a
Yeah,
cause, right?
yeah.
Like, almost sacrificial for the cause
Yeah,
in
and
a way
Atticus,
that
our favorite apple-eating Roman in the episode, says, basically, like, he figures out the plan and he goes to the Roman I don't know what the guy he meets with in that alley, like, what his role or title is, but it seems to be, like, the advisor of this senator
Mhm,
or, like, maybe his bodyguard or whatever, but he's basically like, "This is the plan," um, and the guy's like, "What? Why don't you just arrest him? You've been following the guy, you know who's gonna do it, just"
uh-huh,
and Atticus is like, "Well, you see these zealots, like, it's basically a bunch of martyrs. Like, if we arrest him, it
that's
just
just
adds fuel to the fire. If we, like, torture him, it just adds fuel to the fire. Like, this is almost what they want, right? To
mhm,
keep their movement going." So
yep,
he's like, "I gotta, I forget exactly the line he says, but it was pretty cool in, like, a cinematic sense where he's like, "Rome will win because I'll kill him in the act," right? We're not gonna
uh-huh,
arrest him, we're not gonna torture him, I will stand in the senator's place, and when he thinks he is going to succeed, Rome will win, and I was just like, "Oh, that's pretty, rad cinematically," but,
mhm,
obviously in context of things, not exactly the best. Um, anyways, so Jesse goes down to the pool, or Simon goes down to the pool,
mhm.
and he has to, like, introduce himself to his brother because it's been so long,
Yeah, he doesn't even
and
recognize him.
and the conversation they have is like it's heartbreaking.
It is.
Um, and I'm trying to freaking here we go.
And
Go ahead.
well, they're both, it's you have Jesse who is just living in his despair, his own like which is, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I don't know if I have like something against that. Like, I don't know what I would do in that situation. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very
Right.
rough spot. So I'm not trying to pass like judgment to
Right.
be like he's
Yeah.
living in his despair. No,
But
he's
also, like, it's kind of the only way to describe,
mhm,
like,
yeah,
he's defeated, like,
yeah,
so defeated.
and
Uh,
and
but,
you have oh, go on.
uh, I was just gonna say, like, when Simon introduces himself, he even asks, like, "Do you remember me?" It's so sad.
Mhm.
Anyways, go ahead.
No, and then you have Simon who is just I was trying to think of the right word for this, like, just so filled with hate for the Romans, like, a and again, rightfully so, like, I mean, I don't know if I fully blame him, I mean, I don't condone it, but I understand it, right?
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I
right.
don't
It makes sense. I
or not
could see
condone it,
how it
you know what
would
I mean?
get
I
to
don't,
that point.
not condone it. Yeah, whatever, but so they're fighting on trying to just, well, first off, he's like, "You make this pilgrimage every year, and this is the first time you've come
Right?
to say hi to me."
Yeah,
Like,
and they're like he's like, "You must be 30 years old now." He's like, "I'm actually close to 40."
yeah,
He's like, "It's been holy crap." Like,
uh-huh,
that's nuts and it's sad. But I think one of the funny, ironic maybe is a better term,
uh-huh,
but, like, it also is kind of funny watching this. He's like Simon is kind of like, you know, condemning Jesse. He's like, "Dude, this is like a pagan cult.
mhm.
Like, our 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 beliefs, our values, like, don't they don't condone what you're doing." And Jesse's like, "I'm pretty sure they don't condone, like, being an assassin either."
Yeah.
So
Well, and then he's like, "Well, what's wrong with the cult?" Like, it's almost so he's giving this clear in intention or clear thought of, like, giving up on his God, right? Of
Yeah.
the Jewish God. Like he's clearly given up on that.
Yeah.
Um, Especially to spend your entire life at this pool. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's your actions show a lot that you've given up on anything.
Yeah. Well, like
And I
it's summed up perfectly. Simon's like, "Do you actually believe this?"
mhm,
And Jesse says, "You try living for 38 years without legs that work." Like
mhm.
he's yeah, it's last resort, man. He's just given up.
Yeah, I mean it's so hard because there's I feel like there's literally nothing in place for someone like this. And you can see, and because you look at the pool, like he's not the only one with he's the only maybe there's he might be the only one that's a paralytic, but like they're all sick,
Mhm.
right? Or else they wouldn't be sitting by a pool all day
Yeah.
trying to dive into it, right? So it's like it's there's clearly not much work for them. There's clearly not much in society for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I mean, I'd argue that's pretty not too far from it today, but at least there's something in place now to
Yeah.
help these situations. But then I don't imagine. I mean, I imagine like you're borderline. I don't know. I don't like. I imagine you are they just I don't know, I can't think of the right word for it. But yeah, so he's struggling and he's just clearly given up. But I like, yeah, he's like, so what, you know, you can go murder people,
Yeah.
like that's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, the the other thing I just wanna throw out there is the acting by both Simon and Jesse in this scene, and then later on at the end of the episode, it's so, so good. These guys do a fantastic job in this
mhm,
episode, but, like, massive props to Jesse. He, like man, his facial expressions and body emotion in this episode is just he just does such a great job conveying, like, what he is feeling through his body language,
mm.
and, it's
He
that's
does, man. You're
hard to
right.
do, I feel. I mean, yo, since I'm such an accomplished actor, psych, I've never acted in anything, nor do I ever want to. That's just I couldn't
Correct.
do it, so I couldn't even imagine getting in front of a camera and acting out a scene, let alone, like, putting in the effort that, the Jesse does in these scenes with just, like, the way he conveys that with his body language and facial expressions. He just does it's so good. It's so
Mhm.
good.
No, it really is. I was just watching a couple right now. Even just when, you know, he's telling Simon, he's like, whoever it is, like, don't do it. Don't
Mhm.
kill them. And Simon's response is that, I'm not uh, I'm not afraid of death. Like, and so that's, further clarifies his
Yeah.
extremist point towards this. But his response, his facial response, Jesse's from that, it was just very, very detailed and very just good. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I actually saw, like a great meme on one of the Chosen's, social media pages of a bunch of Jesse's facial expressions from this episode, and it's like, which Jesse are you feeling like today, like, leading up to, because this weekend is the theatrical release of episodes 1 and 2 of, season 3, so I think they were, doing that to hype it up, but, yeah, it's just of course, at the end here, as Simon's leaving, Jesse whips out the note that Simon left
Mhm.
him when they were kids and reads it to him, and, it's like a kind of emotional scene between the 2 of them. But, It ends with the letter ends with him saying, sorry, I'm waiting for it to show up. Jesse, when you stand on 2 feet,
Mhm.
I will know the Messiah has come. I will fight for the freedom of Zion in order to see that day. So foreshadowing.
Yes.
Um,
And foreshadowing and also falling in line with every single disciple that seemed to exist. All of them. It's the fig tree. So I said this so you believe.
mhm.
Simon, the
The
fish.
fish, yeah, yeah.
Um, well, I mean, I would say Matthew was just along for the ride, trying to understand all of but
Yeah,
it's almost as if almost every single one of the disciples needed that very thing. And so
mhm.
I like that they included that into this,
Yeah,
because again, creative liberties, but like a really good one.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and you also got to think too, like if they're going to stay true to his character, he's an extreme zealot, right? That I think at that point, like, don't you think it takes a lot
Yeah, it
to
would take something extreme to
to
yeah,
change you, right?
mhm.
It's not just like oh hey, follow me, and then it's like oh okay cool. It's something
Yeah,
extreme like this, you
yeah,
know.
and the personal level of
Mhm.
the miracle, right? It being to his brother who's been like someone he knows intimately, well, knew and had like a great relationship with, right? It's not just he's walking down the street seeing some stranger
Correct.
be healed, right? Like this is something he knows for a fact. Jesse was one way and now he is healed, right? But I want to say, uh, Simon, this was a little low as he's leaving. After Jesse reads that last little bit, about like, when I see you on stand on your feet, like your own 2 legs, I'll know the Messiah has come. He turns around and he's like, I stand by it. And then I'm like, wow, man, too soon. Like,
Oh,
you
I didn't even
stand
pick
by it,
up on
just
that.
be like, yeah, and I mean it, or yep, that's what it's gonna take. He's got to say, I stand by it.
That has to have been overlooked.
Come on now.
There's no way that was like I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't.
it just drops the mic. I stand by it. Bye,
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Jesse.
ahead and say that was I don't know. I mean, you're right. You that had to have been overlooked, right?
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
I'm of course probably the only person that
that
would
actually picked
notice
up on
something
that. I
like
didn't notice that.
that. Yes.
Oh
But
man,
we see, the plan start to come together exactly like they practiced, after Simon leaves, this assassination attempt. Um, but it kind of gets interrupted. So I say that because this is where the two arcs
merge.
like
So let's.
combine. So pause. We're gonna pause Simon and Jesse, and let's
Yep.
go back to Jesus and the disciples.
Need that rewind sound of a cassette tape or
Yes.
something. Just imagine it.
uh,
Get your
yeah, yeah,
imagination out.
exactly.
So yeah, rewind. We're back near the beginning of the episode. First scenes with the disciples and Jesus, and they are building a tabernacle. And so um yeah, they're building a tabernacle with
What is a
just
tabernacle?
so tabernacle was it's like the dwelling place of God, I would say, if that's so it's like in the time of Moses and Aaron, which Aaron was yeah, so Moses' brother, right? And so which was the first high priest is from my memory serves me correct here. So um it's like that place where the Ark of the Covenant, right? So that would be inside the tabernacle, and it is where God would dwell. Because at that point, like tabernacle, like before the temple was the temple, right? It's where you had the veil and behind it God would be, and you'd have the incense and all that. And so I don't know, do I know exactly how to build a tabernacle? No, but it is in, I think, either Deuteronomy or Numbers. One of them literally lays out the tabernacle. And like, no,
Nice.
it's crazy. And so, but it's where they would go, the high priest would go into to experience God, I guess you would say. I
Yeah,
don't know.
because at that time, not everyone could communicate or hear from God,
Well, yeah, I
right?
mean, yeah, if we're gonna get all I don't want to say churchy, but in like that type of language, yeah, I mean, it would be before the Holy Spirit, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, and so yeah, I feel like the culture there would define like places where God would be. For instance, we touched on Jacob before, right? And Jacob's ladder. And that was where he had a dream and put his head on this rock. Well, when he woke up, he was like, whoa, God is in this place. So he built an altar there. So it's
Mhm.
that kind of idea, is that like they find this dwelling place of God, and they built an altar there. Well, this is like, okay, well, we're going to confine God to this tabernacle, this place where he dwells.
Mhm.
And then at that point it grows to, well, here's this temple. And I'm sure there's some significance of why they built the temple where they built it. And I don't know that, but um and then you get the temple being, like the curtain, you know, of the temple, like actually what, cracking when Jesus, that, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
like there's this point of like, now at that point, like that whole like bridge is, I don't want to say like the Holy Spirit is what is where
Yeah.
it dwells. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm butchering it into some regards because I'm not like this, this bishop, and that's like has all the answers here. But from
Yeah.
my understanding from the books that I've read, it's the dwelling place of God. It's so
Yeah,
long, you
and
know.
like, according to the episode itself,
Mhm.
like, uh, outside of religion, they define a tabernacle as, just a temporary dwelling place, like, just a
Mm,
tent.
okay.
And sorry, I'm,
No, that's good.
getting,
Informed.
captions for the, like, importance of the ceremony, the tradition of the Feast of Tabernacles.
Mm,
So basically, um, they would. Oh, I just had it, but I don't know where it went.
we need that awesome music. Man,
Yes,
we gotta have that on
exactly.
hand.
Okay, so this is what they say. So Matthew, of course, being Matthew, is like not understanding why they're doing what they're doing. He's like, I know what a tabernacle is, but like, why do we have to build one to eat? I love it. But they go on to explain here that God said, this is no, Philip. He said, God said to live in a booth for 7 days during this feast to commemorate. Oh, it went too fast. To commemorate how the children of Israel lived in temporary shelters for 40 years in the
Mm.
desert.
Hmm, interesting.
So, uh, and we get a little more explanation and symbolism uh, during their actual feast in the evening with like Mary and the rest of the disciples and stuff. Um,
That's good. So yeah, I mean, I guess with this episode, you have little things in between. You have your
Mhm.
boy Shmuel.
Oh,
Shmuel's back.
Shmuel. Oh yeah,
Shmuel.
we got to we can't forget about Shmuel
Yeah.
preaching
Well,
in the streets about false
they're
prophets.
they're preparing for this feast, so what we just described is, when they're building this thing. Matthew's like, what in the world are you guys doing? I can eat anywhere.
Mhm.
And who is it? Thomas and
Nathaniel
yes.
and Matthew all kind of go out into the town.
And they realize this because they knew who was around, and they know that they're not recognized
Mhm.
by Shmuel. And so yeah, no, so they see him out there. He's preaching about false prophecy, which is a
I,
clear what?
there's kind of like a little humor in this scene here because Matthew's like doing his best to like hide behind a post, and he's like, guys, you see
Hey,
this? And they're like, what? They're like, it's Shmuel, and they're like, who? And he's like, that's the
uh-huh.
guy that's like isn't getting down with Jesus, and they're
Well,
like, okay, but he I mean, why don't you just go back? Like he doesn't know who we are.
yeah,
Like, but I think there's some funny thing about like Nathaniel's like, well, what are the odds that he would like recognize you guys like in this huge crowd or whatever? And like
uh-huh.
Thomas and Matthew are both like trying to calculate
Because
it
they're yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah. They're both very similar in that regard.
Going back to Nathaniel's or somebody,
Mhm.
I think maybe was it Philip? Somebody said that Thomas is pretty similar to Matthew, and then this is like
Yeah.
the second time where he's
They're
like,
like,
"You
you know
guys are
why
like
you
the
don't like
same
me,
person."
right? It's because he's exactly like you. Um, and yeah,
Love it.
and
You gotta have those little comedic breaks here and there.
um, and if you remember from when Shmuel broke it down to um Nicodemus, he was like, he was like, I know my passion now. I know why I was created to go against false prophecy. So it's like this is his like passion. It is like
Yeah,
his
his new purpose.
his purpose. Yeah, no, it is to go after this. So like he is wiser and more dedicated than he was
I also
before.
love like before he starts, like shoot, what's the other Pharisee's name? It's in the
Yeah, yeah,
description here.
it's yeah, yeah, yay.
Yanni. We'll just call him
Yanni,
Yanni.
Yanni.
Uh yeah, Yanni's like basically like let's pray real quick, and he prays like the prayer of like safety or something, or one that you'd only pray if you're in like extreme danger. And Shmuel's
Uh-huh.
like, whoa, wait a second, like what do you why are we praying this? And he's like, well, they don't really really like this in these parts or whatever. He's basically like, anyways, I'm gonna go grab some lunch. And Shmuel's like, you're just gonna leave me here after that? Like,
Uh-huh.
I love it. Um, but
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so we're here, dude. We are at the Feast of the Tabernacle.
yes.
And um yeah, so they finished creating it. So they got their food laid out. They got and there's
Oh
multiple tabernacles too. They're just laid
yeah,
out
yeah.
all over the place, which is interesting. Which I wonder if, well, because are they at they're are they well they're in Jerusalem now. That means they're
Yeah.
near the actual temple, meaning that I wonder if it was like custom to go to Jerusalem for the Feast of the Tabernacle.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah, so
curious.
basically, like from the sounds of it, it sounds like people would travel there and then just like basically set these up like outside of the city,
Yeah,
almost like a big campground
which is
of
weird
like tabernacles.
because then is it like do they how many times a year do they make this pilgrimage? Like because they're also Passover, you know what I mean? Like so like at
Yeah,
what point is? Are they like, I don't know. I'm very
It's a
curious.
lot.
I'm gonna do some research on this after and see
I
because I'm
expect a 2,000 word essay on the
yeah,
nerdybible.com
I got a couple
detailing
other
the
essays I gotta write before this one.
I love it though because like again Matthew's like Nathaniel, I know you're like a skilled architect, but like you just use branches for the roof. That's clearly not going to keep us dry if it rains or whatever. And I love it because Mother Mary chimes in. She's like, yeah, well, I mean, it's not really like supposed to. Like it's kind of like a symbol here of like they keep us shaded during the day and cool,
Uh-huh.
but like it also reminds us that we need to rely on God and His provision because of how vulnerable we were when
Mhm.
we were in the wilderness during that time or whatever. And she goes on to like continue to kind of lay out a little more of the symbolism between like the tabernacle itself and like what the like tradition, the ceremony is, the feast is kind of like for, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, and that prefaces just kind of the next conversations they get into here. You got the one of the sons of thunder is what did he ask?
Oh yeah, when Jesus starts talking about like one day it's not just going to be us Jews you know having this feast of tabernacle. We'll be joined by these people and these people and these people, and of course Big James is like, but like we don't like those people. They've kind of been a bunch of turds or whatever.
Mhm.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah, well, Big James says, Rabbi, I have a question. And he's like, yes. He's like, the prophet Zechariah talks about, then everyone who has survived of all nations that have attacked Jerusalem shall go up year after year to worship the King, um, the Lord of hosts, and to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And so, and even Simon's like, what? Like, what do you mean? What? And so what that's saying is that they are all clearly like supposed to be in this tent right now. Like
Mhm.
their customs, their culture, they are they survive. What you just said, what it defines is being out in the wilderness for 40 years, right? And so they're like, these other people did
Yeah.
not do this. Like that is us.
Right.
Like that is we earned this. Like this tent is for us. And so they're what he's asking is like, how how is this for everyone? Like what do you mean? And so
Yeah,
uh
he even says he's like one day our enemies will celebrate this feast.
yeah, yeah. And so Jesus is like, so what exactly is the question that you're asking? Because he
Yeah.
didn't actually, he just stated some scripture at him. And so
Yeah.
he's like one day, and kind of goes over there and he's like, um, you know, who so all these people are going to be with us, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Romans, like
Yeah. Yeah.
the people that oppressed us before and the people that are oppressing us now, like you want us to invite them into this holy tent. Because I mean, whether it's a like whether all right, look, so tabernacles, right? Like I think when you build the temple where God dwells, like the actual temple, like the temple of Jerusalem, right? I think that at that point, these tabernacles aren't they probably lose a little bit of meaning, right? Or depth to them. You know what I mean? They're not
Mhm.
this thing that like it's almost symbolic at that point rather than like the actual dwelling place of God. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an act of worship, right? And even says it in here. He's like, this tent, Jesus says this tent is truly an act of worship. Like
Mhm.
just this beauty, this thing that like you built and are offering to God as something,
Yeah.
and
Shout out to our episode on Nathaniel's origin story. We kind of talked about that
yeah.
whole like acts of worship like that. But yeah, continue.
And so Um, where was I going with this? Yeah, so they're just basically Jesus is talking about he's like Jews and Gentiles will be at this table. And they're kind of like looking at it puzzled, and what he says is that something is going to need to change. And I
Yeah.
love that. And because he, I mean, that's what he preaches. Like it's like all over the gospels you see this. And especially in, I feel like Paul's writing, you see a lot of this like Jew and Gentile um togetherness,
Yeah.
and that should pose you some sort of clue that, uh Paul being very versed on Jewish literature, and from his perspective, Jesus being the Messiah, I think he's understanding a lot of this too. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I really like this because it's the stubbornness of the um, disciples that they're still not getting it.
Yeah. Well,
You
and
know?
like they're to the point of like them saying like, well, none of these people have been through what our people have been through. Like they won't get it. Like they haven't been through the hardships.
Hmm.
They didn't make that journey, right? The whole like thing we're replicating. And I love it. Jesus here he says like, well, everyone's gone through the wilderness at some point.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it might not look the same, but like we've all been there. But yeah, I love it. And he's like, yeah, well, something will have to change then.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's
And I love because obviously like there's a ton of talk in the Bible about like Israel and Jerusalem and um Matthew's like, well, if like everyone is going to be coming to these feasts like this, like everyone can't fit in Jerusalem. And Jesus is like, well, it's not like the Jerusalem as we see it or like as you see it or whatever.
uh-huh.
So it's like I love it just like
His literalism
yeah,
is
he's yeah, exactly. They're still like, but this is what it says. And
uh-huh.
he's like, no, he says, I think it will not be Jerusalem as we know it now. That's
Mm.
exactly what he says here in the episode. But
Jesus
I,
said that.
yeah, yeah. Um, I love it. It's so cool. And then Rama's like, well, if I forget which prophet they were talking about or which book this is from. They're quoting these scriptures
Zechariah.
from. Yeah, he's like, so if Zechariah says it, that means it will be fulfilled, right? And someone's like, well, I don't know. It sounds kind of impossible. Mother Mary's like, well, I know a thing or two about
Uh-huh.
prophecy sounding impossible. But yeah. Anyways, continue.
No, yeah. And so I mean that's really where the kind of the story ends, and well, not the story.
Yeah.
That's where the
End of the
conversation, the
episode.
feast, ends. And so then it jumps to Jesus talking to, who is this, John and
John and Simon Peter.
Simon.
Well,
Yep.
at this point, we have 2 Simons now, so this is where we're gonna officially make the
Yes.
name change for us.
Good old Pete.
Simon we have known through these last 12 episodes will now be referred to as Peter,
Hmm.
and Simon Z, we'll call it, or the Zealot
Yeah.
or something.
Simon P and Simon Z.
Yeah, because that doesn't sound anything alike.
Oh
I
man.
love this conversation by the fire, though, that you're about to talk about.
Well, I mean, it's short. It's
It's hilarious, though.
is it? I was trying to remember.
Yeah,
So
basically, Simon's like, well, our good friend Shmuel's back, and he's out there teaching about false prophets. And Jesus, he's talking. Jesus is like, I wonder who he's talking about. And Simon's like,
Arshmil?
I think he's talking about you, Jesus. And Jesus
Oh
is like, I'm joking. I know he means me, Simon. He
yes.
literally says that.
Oh man. Yes, I'm joking. Yes, I know he means me, Simon. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It's just, oh man, I just really like the way they portray Peter in this. He is just so good. And like, and I love it because when I first started reading the Gospels, Peter was my all-time favorite, or I mean, I don't know about his favorite, but like very relatable to me. And I felt very just with, I don't know, who I was before, and just
Mhm,
that, very acting purely on emotions, and quick to act without thinking, you know what I mean? Because
mhm.
Peter's not dumb. It's not like it's not like he didn't know cutting off the dude's ear later on is was bad. He just reacted out of emotions and did it and didn't think it through. If he'd have
Yeah,
thought it through,
and
he'd have been like, "Hey, should not have done that, or I won't do that because my boy Jesus over here is telling, I know he does not want me to like." It's not like he's doing these things out of, he's just very like, he acts out of,
he doesn't think before, like, he just
exactly.
yeah. But he is the one that explains the Bethesda pool to everyone while they're walking into the town. So
Mhm.
he like you said, he's not dumb. He
He's not,
knows.
and yeah, exactly. What did he say? He said to John, he's like, "Yeah, Andrew's not the only one that reads," and
Yeah.
what did he's like, "Maybe you should try it
Yeah,
sometime."
yeah, he says yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I love it.
he's intelligent and it's clear. It's just when I just, for some reason, like reading through the Gospels and just this picture my mind painted of Peter,
Mhm.
it has to be like the same for most people. Like, you got these Bible scholars that and Dallas Jenkins, who created this show, created this character, and like they hit it on the head of how I perceived him, and painted him, because it's like any, any narrative that you read, you gain these characters, you gain these
Right.
perspectives and characterizations of them, and then it paints this broader picture of that person. And so
Mhm.
like when I look at that, I'm like, man, they just like, they nailed the Peter that I got from reading this.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, just even the way he just like sits, and he's just so like, I don't know. I don't even know how to put it to words right now. The way he sits at the fire, and he's just so like, it's almost like, it's like he's thinking back, and like every day was like the roughest day ever. Like he gets to the end, it's just like, he's like, "Oh man, like, no, we're good." And just kind of reflecting, and like, all right, next and tomorrow morning he gets up, and he's bouncer Peter
Yep.
at the club again, and he's just like, I don't know, it's just great. So I'll stop ranting on that, but I think it's just, I really
Oh,
like
no.
his
No, no,
character.
it's good, it's
And
good.
Shahar Isaac is the
Yeah.
actor's name. He
Great
does
job.
is fantastic at it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
oh man.
I agree. He
Yeah,
he's a great character.
I'm excited to see how, um just how the future plays out with Peter. But
Yes.
um
Well, speaking of the future, as they're explaining, talking about the pools of Bethesda and
mhm,
Jesus saying, "We gotta go there. I got someone to meet."
mhm.
As they're walking into Jerusalem,
Yeah, this is, yeah.
they walk past. Is this out of scripture, or is this just another creative thing they decided to do in the
I think
episode
this
here?
is just a creative thing, but from my understanding, like, well, I mean, yeah. So what you're about to say is that Jesus is walking up, and you're experiencing um people being crucified right there on the road.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure that this is like, this would be common. Like, it's not like Jesus was, what was it, the oh my goodness, the where he was the skull of, it means the skull of where he actually was crucified. It was
Oh,
like up on a hill.
Calvary?
Yeah, yes. There's, isn't there another word for it?
Probably.
Either way, um, I'm pretty sure like this was a an act of like you wanted the public to see. Like, this isn't something like, like when you're walking into Jerusalem, into this area that's occupied by Romans, they're like, if you don't behave, like, this is what your future looks like. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a fear tactic that they're doing. So I think that, like, although this might be a creative liberty here, like, this is not a stretch by any means, that like Jesus walking into Jerusalem in an occupied, we'll just say a random, even if it's a random Roman occupied territory, like, you're going to experience this.
You're looking for Golgotha.
Golgotha, yes, which is like the rock, the skull rock or something like
Yeah,
that, if it like
yeah.
translates to
Aramaic for
Golgotha.
skull. Yep.
Okay, Golgotha. Yeah, so I think that might have been a little bit more. I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, I don't even think we really know exactly where that is. I mean, I think we have like what is the word, like the perceived location of his death and birth and all these different areas, but they don't. I don't. We don't think we fully know that those are there. I think right now there's a church built on it. I don't know. I was watching some documentaries recently, but regardless, like, I don't think this is a stretch at all, man. Like, coming in and you're seeing people being crucified, criminals,
Mhm.
and so, like, Romans are pretty good at this. Isn't like this back channel thing that they're like, I'm gonna crucify you to it
Yeah.
was a clear.
Well, and they're like making it and making an example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotta
So
get these people in line.
it's a clear spectacle for the people to follow, you
Mhm.
know. Um, so, but yeah, so I mean, it's deep though. Like, he's walking
Yeah.
by and it's just the music, not the music, but like,
Slow-mo, somber
yeah,
music. It's
just the
the
face
look.
reaction.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you think like there was like a level of like just knowing what I know about Jesus? Like, at what point is it like this not fear, but, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and act like
I'm
Jesus
gonna
didn't weep or anything.
yeah, I'm gonna
It's
say probably not the part of his life and ministry he was most looking forward to.
yeah. Well, there was just, all these emotions that I could feel, like, as and like, I wanted to make these words go into his head. Not hit, but
Yeah.
like I was trying to perceive what he was. I'm not choosing
Yeah.
the words
What
right
I
tonight,
got out of
but
the scene, he looks a little thought bubble
mhm.
pops up, and he just says, "Man, that is gonna suck."
Well, yeah, but also like for the person being crucified right there too.
Yeah.
But then also for like this, like, for the person that is crucifying him, it's almost like, I don't know, like, how much. I think one of my biggest questions about when I think about Jesus in these, like, I feel like the easy answer is to be like, Jesus knew everything, bro. Like, he just knew everything and like he understood it all. And like, and I just don't like, to what extent did he know? And what extent did he like fully know? Like
Well, like, I think I
I
think he knew, right? He knows it all, but I also think that since he was also human, like, he had human emotions about all that he knew, right? Like, so I don't think anything was, um, new to him or, like, foreign to him or, like, caught him by surprise. Like, I think he knew the timing of everything that would happen, but I also think that being a man, like, even though he knows exactly what's gonna happen, he knows exactly why he's doing these
Mhm.
things, what he's sent there for, like, he still feels pain, like, he still, like, obviously feels compassion and love, and I think what you talked about there too that I didn't even think about is, like, the look as he's walking by here, like it's for those people and it's for the
Mhm.
people doing the crucifying. Like that's so deep. And like I didn't even think about that, but like he has all of those emotions, right? So like
Mhm.
I think that yeah, he was probably just like w- one thinking about how bad it's going to suck when his time comes, like he knows when it's going to come.
Mhm.
But he also knows that it's really going to suck. But he also knows that like he's doing it out of service and love for all of us, right? And he's doing it because he loves the people that he's walking past right now that are hanging up there so that, figuratively like we won't have to be in that place. And he's also doing it for the people who are unknowingly like committing this act, like
Mhm.
also figuratively, but again, very literally. I don't know, it's just like a very powerful thing that's happening, and I didn't even think about that side of it that you brought up.
Yeah, and it's like, well, because I feel like for you to be this like I mean, God is right. If you want to look at like the God is love, right?
Hmm.
And so if God is love, that means Jesus is love. I don't know. It's just a simple thing that I'm trying to say here. But like to be something like that, you have to understand the exact opposite of you, and I think the exact opposite of you is evil, and you're
Yeah.
watching it like clear, like in something that's more applicable to our time. Like, I mean, have you ever just like thought about like the Holocaust? I mean, things like that where you're just like, it's just so deep and you don't even know how to like feel, and you feel like just anger and sadness and just all the different feelings. And like and then you start thinking deeper, and you start thinking about the person that's um being murdered, genocide, and then you think about the people doing the genocide, and then you think about like it's just this whole like world of like what like you know what I mean, like it's just so like I don't know. So I think when like he's just I just picture him kind of just looking at like I think when he's sad, I don't know, it just seems like a lot of the things that when he's sad about things or like it's just the evil of the world. Mean, I don't know, right? Like
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just I think that moment for me, just watching him was like the deepest part of the episode for me. And it was just because it just made me think. I don't know, just about all the things we just talked about, but just
Yeah.
all the different angles of it. And so yeah, man, we can move on. It got pretty deep right there, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, hey, that's the point, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and then they go into I'm watching the end of the
Mhm.
episode too, because he walks out and of course is walking right past it again. But he makes another facial expression, but I think it's in regards to the conversation that he has as he's leaving
It is
the
exactly
city.
that. Yes.
Um, so anyways, they go in, they make their way down to the pool of Bethesda. It's Jesus, it's Matthew, Simon Peter, and John. They head down. He spots Jesse, walks over, and would you do the honors, sir? I always like it when you take the reins of the quote unquote Jesus moments of the the show.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. You just do such a great job.
Oh, thank you. I thought I butchered it. No, so you got Jesus, he's standing at the steps. It's got the nice V formation of Jesus
Yeah,
and the
flying duck.
disciples. Yep. Simon alone standing like a stallion. But no, so they're standing at the steps, and it's just the pool, man. It's just it's a very calm water. There's no steam coming up, and just sick people all around. And it was just odd to me. It's like one of those things, like there's just like four Pharisees sitting there. And so like
Yeah.
that was the odd thing to me. I'm just picking up at that now as it's kind of
Yeah,
playing in
they're
the
just, like, hanging
background.
out in the
They're just
corner.
hanging out. Yeah. It's like just sick people everywhere, and they're just hanging out in their nice robes. But yeah, so you got Jesse. He's lying in his usual spot, which I don't under. Why wouldn't you lie closer to the water?
Yeah, like,
Why
literally
isn't
on the step.
anyone? That's what I didn't understand. So I don't.
Why don't you just lay on in the water?
Yeah,
Then
there's
you
probably
automatically
some.
win. Is there some sort of, like, healing cult rules? Like, you have to be so many feet away from the waters for it to count? I don't know. I
Uh-huh.
don't know.
Well, so Jesus walks up, and it's I he says, "I have a question for you." Jesse's kind of looking around for me, like I can answer. I don't have many answers, but here, here we are. I'll listen. I'm listening to you. And so Jesus, as blunt as he typically is, and he says, "Do you want to be healed?" And so he doesn't understand it. And even in John, I'm looking at it, and he says, "Would you like to get well?" I'm looking. It's this portion right here. This whole story stems from John 5, the beginning of it. John 5 1 through, I don't know, 15. So that's a little snippet of where you would actually find this in the Bible. And so he's asking him, "Do you want to be healed?" And so Jesse is just clueless to it, and it shows. I mean, which is, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's like odd that he's clueless to it. I mean, if somebody walked up to, it's. I always thought too, like later on. Remember when the paralytic man was in the the um the house, and they ripped the roof off, and he's like, "Get up." I mean, it's a bold thing to say to somebody that's paralyzed, right? Like it is. You're muted, but you're muted. I
Dang it,
can't
I
hear
do that
you.
all the time.
Yeah.
I clear my throat so much that, like, I often don't mute my mic because I
Uh-huh.
forget,
Yeah.
but then I do, and then I do that and forget to unmute
But
it.
yeah, it's a bold thing to say, and so I don't think. I mean, and it's a very bold thing to hear too. I
Yeah.
don't know if bold's the right word, but
I
like,
would assume that probably they probably didn't find that, a very, uh, polite or, nice thing to say to someone who's paralyzed, like, "Are you kidding?" If I or at least if I were in their shoes, or in this case, on Jesse's mat, be
mhm,
like, I've sat at this pool for 38 years. What do you think? Of course I wanna be healed. Like,
mhm,
are you dumb? Like, that's the dumbest question anyone could ask me. Um, and in your case where you're saying, like, how he's bold and he's just like to the guy in the house, like, "Get up, take your mat, walk." You're like,
mhm.
"You don't think I haven't tried that before?" Like, are you
But
kidding?
that shows you though too, like when they call him and they say like, "Get up," like your response is to say, to almost scoff,
Mhm.
like like, what do you mean? But like it also takes an act of it takes an act, right? Like he has to move his leg. So imagine that, like it's this like he has to respond to it in some regard. Like he has to literally get up and move in a way that he would have never done before,
Yeah.
or so it's a response, and it's interesting. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. But so he's just like, well, like, yeah, duh. But he's like, but my question remains, like, do you want to be healed? And he's like, so will you take me to the water? Like, you know, I mean, I can't make it on my own. I've tried. I've been here, you know. I've been paralyzed for 38 years and I still have yet to get to that water. And so I love this this
It's
the
so
it,
tragic. Just his like head shaking, like no. He's just like, no.
it's it is, but it's like that face, like I can watch that like 1,000 times, and it's just such a good scene right there. That little snippet, it's
Mhm.
just like it's like pity. I don't know. I'm trying to
But it's also like you like
put my
you
finger
don't
on it.
even like know. Like your hope is in the I guess
Yeah.
pity would be a good thing because he's just like your hope, you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Like the
You're
pool is not gonna do it, man.
exactly, and, like, just that no words. He doesn't even dignify it with words. It's just this, like, no, like, I'm, like, a sad feeling for him, and I don't know, it's there's a lot of emotions in that head turning no. And I have a feeling this is one of those scenes that like they tried many, many times and like had to like maybe coach him, or maybe like there was some sort of coaching in this, whether it's before or during or, that got him to get this response, because it's like one of those things that like there's just so much emotions in just that head turn. And so
Mhm.
I loved it though. This is my second favorite part of this episode right here. But um, and his response is just like, "Look, dude, I don't know who you are, but like I'm having a terrible day. I just saw my brother for the first time in I don't even know how long. He's off to I probably will never see him again. Um and I'm just I don't have time for this. Like, are you gonna carry me to this water? Because um if you don't, no one else were. I have no one to help me do this. Um and so and he's just talking about how everyone around him kind of just stomps on him, and just it's like it it's just like everyone is out for themselves here. There's no there's no this isn't a community of people. Like I am getting trampled on trying to
Mhm.
get to this. And so, and I love it. Jesus gets down low to his eye level,
Mhm.
and it just says, "Look at me." And I love this. And he's just he, he's just again bold, and he's just like, "That's not what I asked." Like,
Mhm.
and so, and which is weird because this is, it's that same kind of, I don't know, like he everyone, like for instance, like how we talked about the disciples. I had to think through this one, but the disciples, they all like respond to something. Like they see something, it's miraculous, they respond.
Mhm.
And in this conversation, like he has to respond for the miracle. Like it's not like you see the miracle and then you respond to it. It's kind of how I was just describing before. Like he has to move his legs
Yeah.
for the miracle to occur. And until he moves that legs, like it's not a miracle yet. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so like it's just one of those things that it's like he has to believe before seeing in here. And
I
does that
think
make
it
sense?
it might have a connection to maybe every I mean, I'll probably get roasted for this, but like uh, is it every time Jesus heals somebody, he makes a comment about but because of your faith, by your faith, your beautiful faith, like
Mm-hmm.
you are healed. And so like what you're saying, it's faith to know that you're paralyzed, but listen and try to stand up. It's faith to
Yeah, no,
turn away from what you thought was your only and last hope and shift your focus on like the our only hope, right? I mean, at the time they don't know that yet. I mean, that gets revealed to them during this or after like these encounters, right? But like it takes faith, believing. You have to believe. You have to act on what you can't see or hasn't been fully realized to you yet. And in that process, the healing is received.
Yeah, it's like something that is clearly beyond your understanding. I mean, that seems to be like the central idea of faith, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, even now, like as I one thing that I always struggle with, like which everyone seems to have all figured out, but but me, no, is I struggle with like praying and like especially like praying out loud because and it's such a weird thing to be like, but like it's just one of those things where it's just it's hard to like even when I'm like praying for myself, I feel like it's like this like it's like something that I'd be praying for maybe before like beyond understanding. And like so therefore I'm like I tend to not pray for it because it's like it's out of my little idea of like of what you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Does it do you get what I'm trying to say? It's like I lack faith. I don't pray with faith. Does that mean okay, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's like so I don't know. It's weird. I don't know.
Well,
He
it's a hard thing, right?
uh
Because like you're believing in something that you can't physically, it's not like you can't see it in front of you. You can't like tangibly grab and touch these things that require faith, right? Which
mhm,
is why they require faith. And it's, um, I mean, it's a struggle. It's hard, and it's something that I also, struggle with. I'm trying to get better. Obviously, I mean, we all are. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to find like
of what?
the actual definition of faith.
There's actually a really good definition in I think it's Hebrews 11, I think. Hebrews 11.
Yeah, Hebrews 11. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see.
Yes, and have yes. Yep. Yeah. I knew it. All right. I remember that one. I always like that one. But it's the sure of thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I that's why I loved that one scene where the was she an Ethiopian woman? Was that who it was? I can't remember who dropped
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
the paralytic man into the house, and he looked up at her and he said, "Your faith is beautiful." And
Hmm.
like he's just like he is mesmerized in that moment by her faith. And so I don't know. I always
Yeah.
it's like one of those things. It's like that sure of that I struggle with,
Yeah.
and and it's not. Yeah, it's not even that I'm not sure of things. It's just I tend to just not. I don't know.
Well, faith is like the opposite of logic in a way,
Mhm. Yeah, it
because
is, and
like
I'm s
it's faith is not logical. um,
exactly.
but like here's the even more an extension of the
Mhm,
definition. So like belief with strong conviction, firm belief in something for which there may not be tangible proof, complete trust, confidence, reliance, or devotion. Faith is the opposite of doubt. So like, yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing. It's a hard
mhm.
thing. Um,
Well, yeah, and I tend to build my beliefs on things that I have, like that seem to have been proven to me.
mhm.
So, like, it's hard for me to build any faith on things that haven't. You know what I mean? And I guess I don't even necessarily it doesn't even have to be like this complete logical proof, but much of the things that I believe are built on logic, and which is what in this show at least, why I've related to Matthew, where he's just kind of like he's like count. I could just picture him like on a
Yeah.
whiteboard, like adding things, and he's writing, and he's looking, and he's like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one fish, two fish, three fish, blue fish, 5 billion fish, and I don't
Yeah.
know what
And
the
all of a sudden, our
world.
boats are sinking. What's going on
Uh-huh.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so um and which might be one of those things that like led me in the first place. It's like it's something that seemed to be so evident to me that has defied my logic, and it's stuck so much to me because it's like it it as
It
yeah, it's
shouldn't
just
make sense to
it
you.
shouldn't make sense to me, but it is, and I
Yeah.
don't understand, and it's like this deep feeling of truth, you know?
Mhm.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah. It's good.
mm.
Thanks for coming to our little mini sermon on faith, guys.
Um, but yeah, so back to Jesse and Jesus, and so he's still in there, and he's like, I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the people that are have stomped over you. I'm talking about you. Like,
Mhm.
how I do you want to be healed? Like what? Um, and so um he's like, "This pool has nothing for you. It's empty." And that's the face that he gave him earlier too.
Mhm.
Um, it means nothing, and you know it. And that's what he like. That was the part that got me in there because he's like, it means nothing. Like, it's just you've sat here for how many years, and it means nothing to you, and it does not. Yeah, but you're still here. You're still here. Why?
Yeah. And
Uh,
he's just like, "I
and
don't
he
know."
just he doesn't. He says, "I don't know." Literally, that's what he says.
I think there's something also too here in the question of or in that dialogue too of Jesus saying like, "No, no, no, I'm not asking about like your circumstance. I'm not asking about your
Mm, mhm,
hardships around what you're trying to achieve. I'm not asking about like how you're trying to achieve it. I'm asking like, do you want to be healed?" Like, and you can insert uh you can take that as healing, you can take that as salvation, freedom from whatever thing is holding you back, right? Like, don't focus on let's use sin as an example. Don't focus on that one thing, that one sin that you're praying to be freed from, right? It's not about the sin, it's not about what's causing
mm.
like you to continue to slip into this like cycle of this sin or whatever. Like, do you want freedom? Like, then shift your focus to me and your freedom will come, right? And that's like another one of those things that's like very hard for my brain to like conceptualize. Like, what do you mean I can't focus on the why or the what?
Mhm.
Like, how am I supposed to like deal with this if I don't focus on why I'm doing this or like what it is I'm doing? No, no, no. Like, just focus on me and your freedom will come, your healing will come, your insert whatever it is that you're seeking, right? Because if we're focused on Jesus and we're like pursuing Jesus, like everything else just falls away.
And that's a good way to put it because I'm happy you didn't say like, then we're healed, like because it doesn't seem to be that way. You know what I mean? Like focusing on this, like this right here is an anomaly. Not an anomaly. All right, so I don't want to use that. That was a bad. It's like when I think of this, I think of Paul when he was in prison, and he's like, I'm locked up right now, but I am more free than I have ever been because he was content in Jesus. You know what I mean? He was
Mhm.
content in that, and so like, I don't know. It's just I struggle with this because they're, we're sitting at a pool right now, and right, and look at
I
all
wish
those
we were literally
people.
sitting at a pool right now because it's now winter in Ohio, by
Yes,
the
it
way.
is winter in Ohio. And by the time you're hearing this is recording,
Time
it
travel.
probably have snowed already. Well, it already has snowed. But no, but as they're sitting at this pool, like there's so many more people that were probably Jewish that probably strayed and are now seeking to be filled by this false idol, this false god, actually. I mean,
Mhm,
honestly, because it's and so, but like he's the probability, the outlier here that is actually singled out by Jesus and healed. So that's
mhm.
where it's like it's hard for me to, you know, I don't know because any of these people, like, why was it him? You know what I mean? Why wasn't it anyone else? And that's something I struggle with too. But
Yeah, that's a good question, but I don't know, maybe it comes down to, like, he enacted on his faith. I don't know. That seems to be the one thing that is constantly brought
mhm,
up,
it's
um,
always the thing that's brought up.
but also, I mean, we're witnessing a miracle,
Hmm.
and not saying that, like, miracles still don't happen, they do, um, yeah, I don't know, I mean, dude, if we if we had these answers,
Yeah.
like, I mean, we would solve, like, the great mystery one of the great
Uh-huh.
mysteries of our faith, right? Um, yeah, I don't know, it's a good question to bring up.
But yeah, so he said he said his typical stand up, pick up your mat and walk. And
Classic.
yep. And so and he smacks his leg and he just instantly smiles because he felt it.
Yeah.
And
Again,
so
Jesse kills it in
mhm.
this scene, like, his the emotion on his face, oh, it's so good.
So they get laughing and he stands up. The guy that's with him is just watching and the very oddly placed Pharisees just turn their heads and look over, and I don't know, maybe there's some reason why they're there, but I'm just not buying it.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's so weird.
but but it's not that weird because I mean in scripture it says so the Jewish leaders object, but this miracle happened on the Sabbath. So the Jewish leaders objected. They said to the man who was cured, you can't walk on the Sabbath. The law doesn't allow you to carry that sleeping mat. So
So dumb.
yeah, right. Well, yeah, it is. And I mean, I feel like I've been trying. I Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna defend them because I think in my head, and like I've been trying so hard to be like true to somewhat of a Sabbath
Mhm.
lately, like and I've been very protective of it, like an aggressive lion that is trying to like if you're trying to take out of my time right now, like I am going to
An
attack.
aggressive lion. I love it.
No, but that's how I've been, I and I've just really I'm in that point in my life where I'm trying to stay true to it because it's not the law portion of it. It's not the symbolic portion of it. It's like the actual getting closer to God.
Mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm.
Or restfulness where I can actually reflect on things. And so I don't know. I think they're just so protective of it, but they've become so headstrong in their, you
Yeah.
know, in their
You're not gonna, like, arrest Lindsay for being like, "Hey, can you take this plate out to the sink for me?"
exactly. Yes, exactly. But there is still like this thing where I'm trying to differentiate between a day off and Sabbath.
Mhm.
And because like running all my errands on this day. It's not rest, and it's not like it's not a Sabbath. It's just not. And
Right.
and so and 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 so I just find myself like just being protective of it and trying to do it. And I've been realizing it like the rest of the week, like I'm much more um it's not stable. It's not. It's like I was gonna almost said stable, but it's not like I'm unstable. but like defeated. Like I'm exhausted.
No,
And,
you're
I'm
full, you're refreshed,
exactly. And
yeah.
and so I find that's been very good. So yeah. So I don't know, to defend them a slightly, like they're just like, hey, don't work. But like you said, that's a very good analogy. Is that like I am not going to arrest my wife for asking me to carry a dish
Yeah, because I mean,
on
he's literally just, like,
Sabbath. Yeah, right.
taking his lawn chair with him.
Hmm.
He's like
Yeah.
but I love, again, I gotta point this out every time it happens, um, as Jesus is doing this, like, John whips out his little notepad, and he's like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I gotta write this down."
Got it. Uh-huh. Yep.
Love it. And
So,
he's just got a I just saw the scene, he's got, like, this big old cheesy smile on his face as he's writing down what just happened.
mhm.
It's great.
So
Um,
here we are. Here we are. Jesse is walking with his well, I guess the Pharisee was like, "You can't do this," and he's like, "Do you think I care?" Essentially, like,
right.
which is like, "Do you think I care right now? I couldn't walk, and now I can walk. Go tell anyone. I don't care. Jot it down, whatever you wanna do. Make note of it, but I am doing as I am told. I am walking." And so here we have Jesse walking, and here we intersect with the scene of Simon
Mhm.
Z, right? And he's
Yep.
about to go off with his, what he had
Yeah.
been planning
The
for,
game
probably
plan
been
is being
working for
executed
years.
perfectly so far.
Mhm. Yep,
Well, with the exception of Atticus being in place of the actual target. Um,
correct. And so here they are, they're taking, about to do it, and from a distance, who comes walking is Jesse. Jesse by
dude,
and
okay,
Simon.
I
What?
I know I interrupt you a lot, but I literally have to right here because I have it playing, like, as you're going through it just so I can get any lines of dialogue, but literally, as soon as you said Jesse, the caption of Simon Z saying Jesse popped up, like, literally in unison. It was perfect timing.
Look at that. And
Amazing.
man, impeccable.
Yeah, totally planned out.
Absolutely. I actually see it in the mirror behind. There's no mirror behind you, but so he sees him, and to go back to what he said, "When I see you walk again, is when I know the Messiah is back." So here he is, like, sees Jesse, and just literally, like, the rest of the world doesn't exist. His thing that he's been training for forever stops. And it's almost like he out of nowhere becomes self-conscious, like this, like he's finally snapped out of it, and he's here, and he's like, what in the world? Like, his whole world got flipped upside down right there in
Mhm.
that very moment, and rightfully so. I mean, you can't unsee that. It's like a ghost, you
Right.
know? And so, yeah, so and at that point, like, he didn't go along with the the hit, and here we are. Um,
Again, I just wanna note, during this man, I went to pause the video, but accidentally almost muted my mic in StreamYard instead of pausing the video right in the middle of talking, that would've been great. But no, during this scene, again, like we talked about earlier, like, beautifully acted between both Simon
mhm.
Z and Jesse, but we're back to no audio, like, no dial you can't hear them
Mm,
speaking, so it's
yep.
like this silent, uh, reuniting of these brothers, Simon realizing, like, holy crap, like the thing, because even though Simon's a zealot, right, and he's like this extremist, like he still is anxiously awaiting
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
arrival of the Messiah. So like, and the one thing that he said, if it's basically like saying like, oh, when pigs fly, I mean, they were expecting the Messiah to come, right? But
Mhm.
nobody really knew when. Um, I mean, it would be similar to me saying the same thing to you right now. Like, yeah, well, when Jesus, if I, the moment you have a real drum set in your corner, man, that I'd know Jesus would be coming back or something, right? Like, we expect Jesus to be coming back, but like I don't know if like we would be shocked if we were able to like a good shocked if we were here when that happened, right? But
Well,
like the
what
one
he's
thing that he set his belief life on or whatever, like that miracle, like he knows it's a miracle because he knows Jesse and his situation, like
Mhm.
it's happened.
Well, that and he's just like, until then, until this Messiah comes back, I'm gonna do exactly what I feel called to do, my purpose. I know my purpose, and my purpose is not gonna change unless you tell me that, like, the purpose is here to, like, you know what I mean, like,
Mhm.
change things, and that's when I'll know. That's when I'll stop in my tracks, and that's exactly what happens. And so I love
So
this
good.
exit scene here. The disciples and John, Simon, or sorry, John, Peter, and Matthew are all walking out, and they're um, leaving, leaving the gate of Jerusalem here, and so Matthew, his very logical brain says, you know, um, why did you could have waited. Like, Shabbat was almost over. Like, you could have waited. Like, why did you not why did you do it then? And he said sometimes you have to stir the water.
Hmm.
Right? Is that what he said?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would be horrible if I got it wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes you got to
sometimes
stir up the water. And so
sometimes
with a smirk
the
on his
cookie
face.
crumbles.
Yeah. And I mean, that's clear. Like, he didn't say stand up and walk. He said stand up, pick up your mat and walk. And it's not the
Yeah,
first time he said it. It's this, he does it. It's and he seems to do it on Shabbat, the
yeah.
healings.
It's
So,
like I don't know, you could kind of see it as maybe this is in fulfillment of like bringing along his persecution, right? Because like
mhm,
he's breaking the laws and like getting noticed, which will then lead to his wanting and all that. But also in the context of this episode, like that's when Simon Z is going to be in town. So that's when he has to heal Jesse so Simon can see him. And so
mhm.
Simon could then come and pursue Jesus and then all that. Um, anyways, yeah, I
Well,
like the double. There's always double like intentions with a lot of the stuff, especially in this episode, but I
mhm.
think you see that a lot in this series.
Yeah, no, this is
And it's
yeah, this
great
is
because as he's saying that, like the camera goes to Shmuel, and he's like hearing somebody say something to him, and then he's like, "Oh crap!"
yep, false prophecy. I smell it.
Yes.
Like, oh man. Yeah, no, this is a good episode. It's yeah, it was good, man. It really was. Overall, I would say 7 out of 7
Seven
scrolls.
out of seven.
Yeah, I gave it a 7. I think there was a lot of maybe a 6.5. 6.5. I'll recant that. 6.5 scrolls. So, um,
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty fair. I don't know if it was a 7, but it
yeah, I
was
wouldn't
it
put
was
it a
a 6
7.
or a 6.5. It's
Um,
it's up there. I mean, it's gonna be hard for any episode to top Matthew 4:24 for me,
hmm,
the last week's episode. Yeah, good episode overall. Anything else we need to get out there before we close up shop?
No, that's about it. This was a longer episode. I can't
Yeah.
believe we can top more episodes, top longer episodes. Literally, we've doubled the amount of time that the episode took to
Dude, there's truth
play.
to what Nick said.
Yeah.
There's truth for every half hour of screen time. It's an hour of podcast
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
This episode
So
came in at a
no,
crisp 56 minutes.
yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, and we did get we had some good conversations in the second half of like theological
Mhm. Yeah.
conversations. So, but yeah, no, I don't really have anything else on it. I thought it was a great episode. That
Perfect.
leaves us with what is the next episode? So we have Spirit.
Yes. The one I mistakenly started watching last week in preparation for this episode.
Yes. So we're gonna get a little bit of John the Baptist. So
Yeah.
yeah, so a little bit of bug eating and
A good
and here
old
we go. So
camel haired locust eating friend.
mhm,
Yeah, so be looking forward to that. Thank you as always for listening,
yes.
especially if you made it this far. We really appreciate you
Yeah.
hanging in there. And
And if you didn't,
letting
maybe next time just listen on like 1.5 times and
I
you'll
would
get there
recommend
more
that.
sooner.
Yeah, I would recommend that just overall
Yeah.
in if you're listening to podcasts, unless people are like just insanely fast talkers, 1.25, 1.5 speed.
Yeah.
Apparently, so like little inside scoop at Showboys. Oftentimes, we're delving into the world of shorts on YouTube. So if we don't like make note of shorts like during the episodes, one of us will go through and rewatch or re-listen to the episode to pick out some shortable moments. Um, so for me, when I do that, I jack up the speed because one,
Mhm.
I was there. I said a lot of the things, so
Mhm.
I'm not like watching fresh new content. But uh, I'm a slow talker, and at 1.25, maybe even 1.5 speed, I almost sound like a normal speaking cadence. So,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
little pro tip: bump
Uh,
up the playback speed a
I
little
actually haven't listened to myself on a higher speed playback, so I'll have to do that and
Yeah.
s see how that sounds, but awesome, man. Well, I think we had a great episode here. We're back to the turntables tomorrow.
Mhm.
To you
Yep.
guys, it's 2 weeks.
Yep.
So it's just a
Time
lot of time
travel.
traveling right now.
Um,
Um,
Follow
we
us
got
on all the things and rate us on
mhm,
all the things.
yep,
thenerdybible.com, showboysmedia.com.
yep.
Um, and until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.